a narration of an extract from an unpublished diary of 1884 by Dr. J.P. Wills, who interviewed some of the smugglers in their later life from Bexhill. And in this interview he is speaking to Joe S. from the Little Common Gang. This is likely to be Joe Shoesmith. So big thank you to Bexhill Museum for allowing me to use this and passing me this. Please do bear with me, because the way this is written is straight from 1884, and I have struggled a fair few times to try and get this right. This is my 7th attempt. So here we go. I've been a smuggler and then a year in the Coast Guard, and I think I ought to have a pension. I remember the first night I ever worked the kegs. There was one man took that night. We used to run sometimes 2 cargoes in a dark being between 2 moons. We used to go away right ever so far up to Crowhurst Bridge and further, 'cause should they know when we was to land the kegs, then we'd lie by all day and perhaps all night in the woods, as we did. Why, one Good Friday we ran a cargo right in broad daylight down Newtown, St Leonard's. There wasn't a house down there then, just where the Conqueror Hotel be, which is now modern day St Leonard's Marina. There was an old boat lying along, moored up, and Tom Bennett up in the rigging swung a bit of rope round and round its head, and in come the boat and down we runs, as we hid in the woods up above. Then the batsmen, they drove for blockade men right back to Hastings up to White Rock. There'd be 8 batsmen with bats 8 feet long, and they get hold of one of the blockades men, and if he be quiet they'd leave him alone, and when the kegs was all up they'd fire off his pistol if he was too frightened. This was a signal to other blockade men, but if he fired they'd knock him down and maybe even kill him, maybe not. We didn't have no batsmen at first, but they got to firing and we was forced to, and afterwards it got worse and worse, and we had firearms too. We got 10 shillings for 2 kegs. There wasn't no going back. Up with the kegs and off to go and put 'em in the carts. 'Twas £1 for the batsmen. There wasn't never enough batsmen. 'Twas always £1 for them. There was some stout little chaps, hearty little chaps, nothing but a bat against firearms, and they wouldn't let none of us get touched if they could help it, but they could stop musket balls, when often I've known 6 or 7 get wounded in one night with slugs and such. One night we killed a blockademan in Brooks Meadow and carried another of ours to Bennett's house opposite the churchyard, and another of ours got shot dead in the flat. That's the junction of Sidley and Hastings Road, Holliers Hill. They were all 3 buried in the churchyard. That was the worst night. Some of the blockadesmen was after us, maybe 30, and then just as we got the carts loaded up, down comes another lot from Galley Hill over Holliers Hill. One night we lay in the hollows by the lime kiln at the bottom of Sea Lane. The lime burner, he said he'd like to see the fun, but presently the bullets, they'd been flying around, and I didn't see nothing of the burner as I came back. We used to run spirits in kegs, and silks and tea in bags. A keg of brandy cost 13 shillings, and was worth £4 to £5, and you could water it down too. All the chief men had come to nothing. Some of them died in the workhouse. It was bad work, but lots of the people was all wild in those days. When the barracks was here, Bexhill was a perky little place, sure enough, but awful bad pubs then was open day and all night. One night we was lying up in Restwood, and the kegs was just got up from the hollow down below Galley Hill, where the boat came in, when along came the blockade men, firing at such a rate, our chaps, they cut and run, and left 30 kegs or so in the middle of the road. Well, I went home and changed my trousers and frock. They were all wet through, and come back again just as day was breaking to see what was up. Up jumps one of the men, he was the quartermaster, and catches hold of me and puts my frock straight in to my mouth. It was wet. "Hello," says he, "you're one of them. You've been in salt water." "Why," says I, "I'm just come along to see what's up. You're making such a jolly row up here. I live just along over here." Presently he looks at me and says, "Why, it's our tally merchant." "Of course it be," says I. Go and get your horse and cart," says he, "in the name of King William," putting his hand on my shoulder. 'Twas King William was the king then. So I goes and gets it, and we loaded up the kegs. "Take them to Hastings Customs," says he. Just then I see some of our chaps peering about. They'd run as far as Crowhurst, but come back to see. So I shouted out to them, "Come along," and the blockade men, they then began to fire away. There was only 2 of them, but they'd made such a row in the night we thought there was a lot more, and I gives the mare a smack as I laid down the kegs, and away she gallops right up home and then off to Westfield. Then I left the mare up there and come home, and I expected to be caught, but after a fortnight I fetched the mare and went off to Hastings, because I was obliged to look after my business, which was carrying things to and fro Hastings. Well, as I came along by Belverhive, out comes the blockade man. "Hold hard," says he. "What did you mean by leading me into that trap the other night?" "Why," says I, "what did you mean running away and leaving me all alone with those chaps? I'm going to Hastings to tell the officer and get my money for that night." Then he got in a right mood and says, "Come up to the Bull Inn and we'll make it right." I hope you enjoyed that. I apologise if bits of it went slightly wrong. And until next time, thank you.